love. They told you it's everything, that it's the one thing that makes life worth living, that if you don't find the one, you'll live a life half-lived, unloved, and unfulfilled. But what if I told you that was the trap? What if love, as you know it, was a perfectly engineered fantasy, sold to you like a product, designed to distract you from something far more important? You weren't born chasing love. You were taught to. From your first fairy tale to every romance movie you sobbed to as a teen, you were being conditioned, not just to crave love, but to suffer for it, to base your entire worth on it. And that is where the scam begins. Because the kind of love most people chase, it's not love, it's a narcotic, a consumer-grade high. And like any high, it wears off. And then it hurts. They sell you the idea of the one, as if love is rare and you're just unlucky until you find it. But scarcity creates desperation, and desperation makes you blind, so you chase it harder, even when it hurts you, even when it breaks you. Ever wonder why so many relationships today feel like transactions? Because they are. This isn't an attack on love. It's an exposé on how love was manipulated. Love, once sacred, was commodified. It was put into apps, reduced to swipes. Algorithms now decide who deserves your heart, and you're left wondering why it all feels so empty. Love was never meant to be this. Not a game, not a checklist, not a constant ache in your chest that says, I am not enough without another. That belief was planted by stories, by systems, by a culture that profits when you're broken and searching. So maybe you're not unlovable. Maybe you've just been sold a version of love that was never meant to nourish you, only to use you. Welcome to the love scam. Welcome to the psychological trap of modern romance. See, in the old world, love was survival, tribal, practical, spiritual. People bonded for shelter, for children, for meaning. But in today's world, love is identity. Love is branding. Love is the fantasy you're told you need in order to feel real. Swipe left, swipe right. Buy a gym membership. Curate your profile. Perfect the illusion. Because in this rigged game, you're not trying to connect. You're trying to be chosen. And this is where it gets truly diabolical. When you are trained to be chosen, you become an actor, a shapeshifter. You lose yourself. Your authenticity dies a quiet death in exchange for appeal. You learn to play roles, to repress your truth for attraction, to abandon depth for dopamine. Because real love takes time. It takes vulnerability. It takes a risk. But the market of modern romance doesn't reward risk. It rewards performance. And so, now we have a world full of people not seeking love, but validation, not seeking partnership, but confirmation that they're worthy. But here's the truth most don't want to hear. When you need someone to love you in order to love yourself, you are already enslaved. You're not building connection. You're building dependency. And this dependency, this addiction to attention, approval, affection, it breeds toxicity. It leads to jealousy, control, obsession. You stop seeing the other person as a human. You start seeing them as a source of validation, of relief, of ego-soothing fantasy. And that's why most relationships fail. Not because people don't love each other, but because they were trying to heal their wounds with a mirror. You can't love someone else right when you haven't made peace with your own emptiness. Modern love was gamified. It's not about meaning anymore. It's about stimulation. It's about who can fill the void fastest. But here's what no one tells you. There is no relationship that will save you from the relationship you have with yourself. So, what if you've never experienced true love? Maybe you were never taught how. Maybe you've only known the simulation and not the substance. This is not your fault, but it is your responsibility now. Let's talk about how you were programmed. You didn't just stumble into this broken model of love, it was installed. From childhood, you were spoon-fed a vision, a fantasy, a fairy tale that sold forever like it was a product. One day, you'll meet someone who completes you. They'll make your life whole. You'll get married, buy a house, have kids, grow old, die happy. Sounds sweet, right? Now, here's the scam. This fantasy was never about love. It was about control, about selling you a template, so you could be predictable. Controlled people are profitable. And there's no stronger control mechanism than romantic desire. From Disney films to pop songs, you were wired to believe that your life doesn't begin until someone else enters it. But what happens when your entire identity hinges on finding the one? You become vulnerable to manipulation, to settling, to ignoring red flags because, what if this is my only chance? The fear of being alone, it isn't natural, it was engineered. And once you're afraid of loneliness, you'll do anything to escape it. Even if that means choosing someone who treats you like a backup plan. They told you love conquers all. But what they didn't tell you is that love can also blind you. It can keep you locked in dysfunction for years because at least someone loves me. This is emotional capitalism, where your longing is monetized, your heartbreak is recycled, your desperation becomes a market. Dating apps, romantic films, forever jewelry, therapy for trauma rooted in broken attachment. They profit from your inability to sit with yourself. And that's the greatest part of the scam. They sold you a solution to a wound they helped create. They gave you a dream, and when it crumbled, they sold you the cure. Love wasn't broken, it was just hijacked. If you're waking up to this, you might feel betrayed. You might feel like everything you were taught is a lie. Good. That's the beginning of freedom. Because real love, the kind that heals instead of hurts, doesn't come from fantasy. It comes from clarity. And clarity begins with asking, who taught me what love is, and what did they have to gain? Now, let's get deeper. Because this wasn't just an emotional con, it was industrial. Behind the illusion of love lies $1 trillion web. The wedding industry alone is worth over $70 billion globally. Every fairy tale needs a climax, and they sold you yours in lace and floral centerpieces. The beauty industry thrives on the anxiety of not being lovable enough. Buy this cream, lose that weight, wear this scent. Why? So you can qualify for affection in a game rigged by insecurity. Then came the apps. Swipe left, swipe right. An endless slot machine of attention. But here's the trick. Dating apps aren't built to help you find love. They're built to keep you searching. And you're not a person. You're a user. You become addicted to the maybe, hooked on the idea that your next swipe might be the one. Just like a casino keeps gamblers playing, even social media plays its part. Couples post curated perfection, filters over dysfunction, likes over love. You're made to feel like you're falling behind if you're not paired up. But the worst part? Society shames the single, as if being alone is a failure, as if solitude means you're broken. So instead of facing ourselves, we chase connection like addicts needing a fix, even if it's toxic, even if it's empty. Because somewhere deep down, we're still trying to live up to that childhood myth of being chosen. But here's the quiet truth they don't want you to know. You don't need to be chosen to be whole. You weren't born lacking. You were taught to feel incomplete. Because wholeness, it doesn't sell. Desperation does. If you were at peace with yourself, if you understood that love begins within, that you're not missing half, but already a complete force, then you'd be uncontrollable. You wouldn't fall for every marketing campaign. You wouldn't tolerate mediocrity dressed as affection. You wouldn't keep pouring into relationships that drain you just to avoid sitting with silence. You were not born to be someone's mirror. You are the flame, not the reflection. So, what happens when you finally find love in this broken system? You settle. Because you're exhausted. Because you're afraid this is the last train leaving the station. You enter relationships like contracts, not connections. Agreements based on fear, obligation, or convenience. Not passion, not alignment, not purpose. And slowly, the dream decays. What they never told you is that being in a relationship doesn't guarantee you won't feel alone. In fact, many are lonelier inside a relationship than they ever were on their own. Why? Because when love is shaped by external templates, the ring, the roles, the rituals, it becomes a performance. And performances are exhausting. They require masks, they demand sacrifice, but never ask what you're sacrificing for. So, what do people do? They gaslight themselves. They say, maybe I'm just hard to love. Maybe this is as good as it gets. Maybe I need to change, shrink, settle. But what if you were never the problem? What if love, as we were taught it, was never about connection, but about control? Ancient cultures viewed love as a force of spiritual unity, a merging of souls. But modern romance? It became a transaction. Sex for validation, security for submission, attention for silence. It's no longer sacred. It's strategic. You don't marry because you're whole. You marry because you're afraid of growing old alone. You don't date because you're curious. You date because you feel unworthy without a partner. This is how people end up trapped in love that looks good on the outside, but feels like starvation inside. They post their anniversaries. They wear their matching shirts. They celebrate years of coexisting while quietly dying inside. And the saddest part? They call this success. They call this making it. But what they've really done is give up. They've traded the risk of authenticity for the illusion of acceptance. Here's the truth. Real love doesn't require you to lose yourself to be held. It doesn't ask for your obedience. It doesn't guilt you into staying small. Love, real love, isn't found in the grand gestures, the proposals, the reels. It's found in the quiet moments where you can be fully seen and still be fully safe. And until you free yourself from the romantic script you were handed, you'll keep playing the role they wrote for you. But you're not here to be a character in someone else's story. You're here to write your own epic story. We were taught to chase love like a prize, to believe that without it, we're incomplete. But let's ask the dangerous question. Who benefits from that belief? The industries that profit from weddings, anniversaries, couples counseling, breakup songs. The apps that exploit your loneliness with swipe dopamine and endless profiles. Even your job benefits when you're too drained by heartbreak to rebel against the system. Love was made into a distraction, a pacifier for the pain of modern life. Because if you're busy searching for the one, you're not looking for yourself. And maybe that's the core of the scam. They told you love would complete you, so you stopped completing yourself. You became a half, waiting for another half, building castles in your mind on foundations that were never yours to begin with. But here's the shift no one warns you about. Real love doesn't feel like a high. It feels like peace. It doesn't make you chase. It invites you to rest. It doesn't drain you. It builds you. But the system can't sell you that, because peace doesn't make profit, and content people don't consume. So now, you have a choice. Do you continue playing the role of the romantic soldier, fighting for a fantasy that was sold to you? Or do you step off the battlefield, tear up the script, and begin the dangerous act of loving yourself first? Because when you do, you stop begging for breadcrumbs. You stop twisting yourself into shapes to be enough for others. You stop equating loneliness with failure. You become whole. And when you're whole, love becomes a gift, not a transaction, not a dependency, not a prison. Just two people, already complete, choosing to walk the same road, not because they have to, but because they want to. This isn't a call to reject love. It's a call to redefine it, to reclaim it, to rebuild it from truth, not tradition. Because you were never broken. You were never incomplete. You were just told a lie. So, you'd keep looking everywhere, except within. If this message stirred something in you, if you've ever questioned the story you were told about love, then don't just scroll past. Comment below, what does real love mean to you now? Let your voice be part of the untold truth. Subscribe to the Ethereal Thinker for more deep dives into the systems, stories, and psychological scripts that shaped your reality. Because the moment you start thinking for yourself, you've already broken free.